Well, let me toss it over to Parikshit Luthra, who has the top leadership at industry body FICCI with him.
Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has delivered the first budget of the NDA 3.0 government. The focus once again was on the poor, the farmers, the youth of the country and also the middle class. How has the Finance Minister fared when it comes to increasing the manufacturing footprint of the country, exports, trade facilitation? Joining us to talk about this all is a stellar industry panel. We've got veterans with us from the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Joining us is Dr Sangita Reddy, Mentor, FICCI Committee on Medical Value Travel and Women Empowerment. Also, the past president of FICCI and joint managing director of Apollo Hospitals, Subhrakant Panda, immediate past president of FICCI and managing director, Indian Metals and Ferro Alloys, Rajan Bharti Middle, past president FICCI and vice chairman of Bharti Enterprises, Sandeep Somany, chair FICCI Task Force on Ease of Doing Business and also managing director of the Somany Group, past president of FICCI as well. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Mr. Reddy, if I can begin first with you. How do you think this budget does when it comes to unleashing the animal spirits of the economy? The economic survey had said that it's now important for the private sector to invest more. This is where we've been lagging. Also, in terms of job creation, it is only the private sector which can create those jobs for the future. Today, we've heard of 3 schemes for generating employment, incentives, something that the industry had been asking for, ELIs, that has been announced. How do you see the government's push towards manufacturing and making India a manufacturing hub for the world?
So I think overall, Parikshit, we're looking at a good budget. It's a budget that promises continuity. There's a surety. There's an ability to look at every critical segment, from agriculture to youth to employment generation, critical manufacturing, and each one of these have a complementary effect on each other. There is an underlying messaging of rationalization of the tax regime. There's a simplification. There's an enhancement of productivity. So I think it ticks many boxes. And therefore, as corporate India, we should all say, yes, we're happy we're on the road to success. We acknowledge being the fastest growing economy with great headrooms for growth. And this budget will enable that growth in many forms. There is, of course, the underlying aspects of what was announced earlier on research and innovation. We appreciate those points. There is the focus on women, which I must call out, and that's significant. So overall, I would say as an opening statement, this is a budget of continuity. It's comprehensive in its approach, and it does have the ability to encourage and make the middle class enthusiastic. Approximately up to 17,500 rupees going into their hands will fuel consumerism, which will then assist manufacturing. And of course, infra has the continued push.
Right.
So many ticks.
All right. When it comes to infrastructure, Mr. Somany, the announcement that was made in the interim budget, the government has been in line with that. There is no change in the infrastructure capex per se. There was a demand from the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry to increase that outlay. So is there some amount of disappointment on that front?
No, I don't think so. You know, the Honorable Finance Minister laid out a roadmap some years ago, and she's sticking to that roadmap. They have been spending a lot of infrastructure. In fact, the government has been front-ending capex over the last few years, if you know. And frankly, they are continuing to spend on infrastructure. There's a lot of thrust on rural infrastructure. There's also a lot of thrust on urban infrastructure. Of course, there are partnerships with the state, and the states also have to, put in a certain amount of capex to improve their respective infrastructures. I think if you look at the statement of the Finance Minister, it's very clear that the continued focus on infrastructure remains and is here to stay. So I think that's a positive move, and I think it's not a one-off move. It will continue to be the focus in the next few budgets too.
Right. Mr. Panda, if I were to ask you about the focus on critical minerals. So there are 25 critical minerals which will be exempted from duties altogether. This is to push manufacturing of niche technologies in the country. Does this give an impetus, so to say, to industries like yours?
So, Parikshit, when we look at the manufacturing sector, there are clearly niche areas, like you said, which are very dependent upon these critical minerals. And barring one or two, India, unfortunately, as of now at least, doesn't have those resources, which means that we are reliant on imports. So, from that point of view, I think completely exempting the import duty on these 25 critical minerals is a good step forward. But I think what is also important to focus on is that the Honorable Finance Minister talked about a mission aimed at recycling these critical minerals, for secondary use, etc., as well as focusing on acquisitions abroad. In fact, FICCI had done a study on this last year, and clearly, when it comes to critical minerals, where a lot of our high-tech niche manufacturing is going to be reliant on these inputs, I think we need to do everything that we possibly can, and this is an important step towards ensuring that we sort of recycle the resources which are there for secondary use, do more exploration for any of these minerals which might be there in India, and of course look at acquiring assets abroad.
Right. Mr. Mittal, when it comes to telecom equipment, also mobile phones, the government has decided to increase the basic customs duty on specified telecom equipment from 10 to 15%. Now, this includes motherboards, PCBAs. This is to increase domestic manufacturing. When it comes to mobile phones, mobile phone chargers and certain components, the import duty has been slashed. How do you see these measures? We've been seeing some sort of impact on telecom stocks since morning, especially the increase in basic customs duty on certain telecom equipment. How do you see this?
I think we have to look this in two different ways. One is the telecom equipment, other is the mobile phones. Right. India is becoming now a second source of mobile phones, especially for domestic as well as exports. As you've seen, we've crossed the numbers which was not even expected, and I think it's in the right direction. The PLIs that have been set up for that, and we import a lot of electronics, as you are well aware. So I think it's a right move, especially in manufacturing, and which is actually, if we really kind of juxtapose it with the job creation, it's very important. India's growth story cannot be predicated only on services. So agriculture being one part, which is being talked about, manufacturing being the other. So electronic manufacturing, especially mobile phones, is being considered in that light. On the telecom equipment, we believe that telecom equipment also India can, in the future, become a source, global source for telecom equipment. And that's why it is being now pushed that the Indian manufacturers start doing the manufacturing internally. And we are seeing even the global giants are bringing the base for manufacturing in India, the Ericssons of the world, the Nokias of the world, and of course the Indian stack which is coming along. So I think it's been, I would say, a mixed bag, but kept in mind for a long term and long future for